thinks that he can influence their policy, and he changes their policy because he's an influential economist and he's a successful businessman and he pays for what he gets. So he thinks the Liberal Democrats are the ones for him, but he's never going to get anywhere with it because, frankly, they're not going to get power. But they did get a coalition once. So, as for Lady Starmer herself, she's a remarkably quiet lady. She's not very visual, is she?
Let's read you this comment. I'll read you this comment from Sihan.
Yes.
Lady Starmer was, according to some analysts, ordered by the Prime Minister to appear at public events recently to show support after a long absence. She looked haggard, unwell, and very uncomfortable.
Well, I would say that she appeared at the VE Day celebrations, and they were kissing and making, they were very happy. It looked very forced to me. I didn't think it was a very happy place for either of them. Now, I don't know any more than anyone else, but I speak with my journalistic colleagues and friends, and they all say there is a problem. There's a definite problem. So, and the way it was presented on Radio 4 this morning with Sarah Vine, I thought was very, very interesting, because the minute she dared come close to saying what we've just said, Amal Rajan immediately moved the issue on and just cut her off, because they've been told to be quiet. The BBC have been told to be quiet about this. There is no discussion of this.
Is that a D notice then? Because it's terrorist cops that have apprehended these three boys.
Well, it is they use the situation of an ongoing legal case. So don't talk about it, because that is a way you can stop a conversation, because obviously you don't want to prejudice an ongoing legal matter. Whether I'm prejudicing an ongoing legal matter by talking to you about it, I've no idea, but I could be. It's quite possible we could be prejudicing an ongoing legal case, but I haven't said anything. I don't know anything specific about these people, nor do you. So all I know is what I've been told and what I've discussed with other people in the press. And there is something more curious about this than, those three men are not. They're not your average looking. They don't look like Al Qaeda, do they? They're not exactly who you'd think would come around bombing your house and blowing up things and setting fire to and they're all aspiring male models. Their only connecting factor is that they all aspire to be a male model.
They look like they belong in the Village People, Matthew.
Yeah, they could be a little boy band, couldn't they? They could be the next Take That. I don't mean the one on the right is quite Robbie Williams, but nor is the one on the left. The one on the left looks a bit like Ant or Dec. I never know which one's Ant or Dec. I always get confused. It could be Ant
supposedly,
or Dec.
He's the oldest one, supposedly, in his 30s on the left.
The one in the middle, I don't really know who he looks like. He looks a bit odd. He definitely looks more odd than the other. He looks very odd. The one he's got funny eyes. The one in the middle, so odd. Definitely very. And what he's wearing, some kind of strange T-shirt with something around it. I can't read what it says. Does it say Welsh Jack or something? Welsh Jack.
I don't know.
He doesn't look very Welsh to me. But there we go. Anyway, I don't know what to say.
Well, you've got tons of questions pending, Matthew. So Tracy wants to know.
Okay. Tracy, I'm just going to pour myself another glass of wine whilst Tracy asks a question. Okay.
Tracy's asking, will these boy band members ever get to speak up and explain to us what happened? Will they get the opportunity in court? They've got a court date in June.
Well, if they're in court, they're able to speak. They should be allowed to speak. The British justice system is a fair justice system. They should be allowed to speak. If that's their opportunity, if they want to explain themselves. But they'll probably be the kind of no comment boys, won't they? That should be the name of their boy band, the No Comment Boys.
What would be your first question for them if they were allowed to speak?
What my question? I don't know. I'm not a judge. You know, well, my first question obviously would be, why did you do this? If you did this, that would be my first question, because that's what we need to know. But did you do this, or are you being framed? You know, it's it's a bit like that program. What was his name? Beatles About. It looks like it comes across as like being something from Beatles About. This whole matter. It's ridiculous. There's something ridiculous about this.
I think my first question.
Are you the Beatles About Boys? That could be another name for their band, the Beatles About Boys. I did visit Beatles' grave in Highgate Cemetery, and it's got his little hand like that, like he did on the grave. It's a bizarre thing. I don't know if most of your audience probably don't even remember Beatle, but I think whatever. So right, okay, next question.
So Kersey's asking how much these boys charged, and apparently the first hour was free, and it was £20 an hour after that. And they were offering
an hour. They're very cheap.
They were offering modelling services and building services.
And one of them, I remember saying he wanted to be the biggest male biggest, and I thought that was a funny word to use. The biggest male model in the world. What do you mean, the biggest? Fattest? Silly boy. Can't even use language. Absolutely cool. So, I don't. There's something very odd about the three of them. And are they the patsies, or are they just the complete pillars?
My first question, Matthew.
There you go. There's a question you should ask the viewers: are they the patsies, or are they the pillars? Have they been manipulated?
Put a 1 in the chat if you think these boys are patsies. Put a 2 in the chat if you think these boys are pillocks. Could you expand on the definition of patsy and pillock?
Well, patsy is someone who's been set up, a bit like Sahan with the RFK, and a pillock is a complete fool and an idiot, just an idiot. There are lots of idiots in the world. Yes.
Jen's wondering whether they will ever appear or whether they will be silenced somehow, a la Jeffrey.
I do think they will go to court. This is Britain. This is not America. So we do things slightly differently. I'm not going to criticize the British justice system that much. I know that the British justice system gets it wrong, but I tend to blame the police rather than the judiciary. The judiciary actually do a very good job in Britain, and they are not corrupt and bad. But the big problem is the police in Britain. Britain has a lot of bad police officers, and we know about that, don't we, Shaun, in a very big way. And, my friend Peter Blexley, who I do a lot of work with, and, anything about the Essex police and all the rest of it, there are a lot of bad people in the police. So I don't trust the police, but I do tend to trust the judiciary. So that's where I have my feeling on that matter. So there we go. Right. Okay.
All right. So we're getting asked, how did the police track these boys down to apprehend them? Do we have any knowledge of that, or is that?
I don't have any knowledge of how they found them. No, I don't know anything about. I don't know anything about that. I can't answer that question.
All right. My first question would be how they knew which properties to target. I mean, what are the viable options, though, that someone provided them the information, or they'd actually visited the properties themselves?
Well, I find it very odd that they went to targeted a property he owned in the 1990s, because, the data would be very hard to find. how would you find this data? Because the internet really wasn't big in the 1990s. I was at school in the 1990s, and my mother was obviously very involved in the setting up of universities on the internet in the 1990s, but that was the late 1990s, and it can't be possible for these people to know this information. And also the thing on the car is a very weird thing, because okay, I can understand how if they found the car and they found the property that he lived in, before he was prime minister, that's kind of, the two can easily be linked, perhaps. But because there would obviously be photographs from the past when he was standing to be, to be leader. And there were photographs, like, with Jeremy Corbyn, there were always pictures of him outside his house. And Jeremy Corbyn's a very strange man. He likes taking photographs of drain pipes. That's what I read today. And he said it's a bit of a zany thing, but he said drain pipes are very artistic. So, he used to get photographed outside his house in Islington in North London. This Keir Starmer's house in North London. Obviously, it's a terraced house. You can identify that quite easily. That would be easy to find. But the place he owned in the 1990s is a little bit more weird. You wouldn't find that quite so easily, and it's been converted into flats ever since then, so it wouldn't have looked the same. So there's something about them that spirals into confusion. Now, whether this is the Russian state intervening, as is being suggested, but the Russians say it's groundless, there's no evidence, it's ludicrous, or whether this is simply, three weirdos who want to be a boy band and wanted to be famous and thought they'd be fire starters. And what was the name of that band? Firestarter? Prodigy, yes. So there you go. It all comes back to music in the end, doesn't it? So,
so next question then.
Yep.
Some researchers into Starmer have noticed a pattern of unusual behavior, and that one of the unusual behaviors they've cited is that Starmer suddenly did a random public HIV test. Do you make anything about that?
I don't know whether he took a HIV test or not. I've no idea. I don't know anything
about it.
He
did it. He did a public HIV test for some reason.
Okay. And what was, well, he was obviously found to be clear.
Why would he do
otherwise
that?
There would have been a bigger story about it, I suppose. But I don't know. I didn't know anything about it. But
according to I'll read it to you. According to the BBC, this is
yes.
Just on the 10th of February.
Yes.
So Keir Starmer became the first sitting prime minister to take a public HIV test, joined by Terence Higgins. He took a rapid home test to raise awareness of National HIV Testing Week. The government has committed to ending new HIV cases in England by 2030, with a new HIV action plan to be published in the summer of 2025. So ostensibly, that's why he did it.
Okay, well, that's a good signal of support for people who are suffering with HIV, and I don't think I have a problem with him doing that. But I don't think that connects to this matter. I'm sorry, I'm not buying into that. So
Jane wants to know, is this the downfall of Starmer?
I don't think Keir Starmer has got any downfall yet. No, Keir Starmer has a huge majority. He doesn't need to leave. And if anyone's going to be thrown under the bus, as I've already said, it will be Rachel Reeves, Queen of Thieves. Rachel Reeves, the Queen of Thieves, will be the first to go because she will be blamed for what they've done to the farmers, what they've done to the pensioners, what they've done to all the other people. So I don't think, and Raving Raina will be, she's on the up as Raving Raina. I can't stand the woman, but I really can't stand the woman. But Reeves is the fall guy for everybody, I think. So she's the one who's on the way out, not Keir Starmer.
Didn't Starmer clip the winter fuel allowance for pensioners?
Well, that's exactly what he did. Yes, I just talked about that. The pensioners, yeah, taking away their. It's obnoxious because he's meant to be a socialist. He should be caring for old people and poor people, and but he just wants to bully people, and what he's done to the farmers is appalling. And I come from a rural background, and I don't like what's happening to the farmers, so I'm very upset about this. And I was on the protest in November, or October or November, whenever it was, and I do put my money where my mouth is, and I speak out. And I turn up if I can. And, I really think Jeremy Clarkson is doing a wonderful vocal job in speaking out against this ghastly, ghastly man he's just a piece of toe rag. He's awful. He's just disgusting. He doesn't add anything to our country. And all my friends have said, don't come back to Britain. You should never come back. Britain is a terrible place. It's ruined. We have ruined our once great country, and this man has done this in less than a year. It's terrible what he's done.
We interviewed a farmer, Charles Hirons. It's in the backlist, folks, if you want to watch it. And his property was stolen by banks and lawyers and thieves and political maneuvers. All right, so Ian wants to know, is it true that all political careers end in failure? Even Thatcher was ousted, wasn't she?
Well, everybody people don't know when to leave. That is the problem. And Margaret's mistake, and as much as I love Margaret, and I was a great associate of Margaret, and we had a very good relationship, and Dennis also, and Carol, and Carol's very happy now. Thank you. She's got married and she's done well. But it's knowing the time to leave. You've got to leave on a high. And none of them ever do. Boris Johnson, he didn't know when to leave. He mucked it up. I didn't like the man in the first place, but Tony Blair, he kind of got it. He nearly got it right, but he had his war in Iraq, which was a terrible thing. They all, Biden. But today I read an article in the Telegraph, because we read all the local papers. We read all the papers down here because my computer isn't properly. My computer isn't working because it blew up. So I borrowed the neighbor's computer. So I've got. I read papers, and I love reading newspapers again now. I find that this is a wonderful thing to do. Is actually to read physical papers. And today there was a brilliant article in the Telegraph about Biden. And how Biden is now back in his local town, wherever it is, just Wilmington, I think it's called. And he goes to the local shop to walk around. He just goes there and walks around because Sleepy Joe is obviously not quite with it. And he likes to spend an hour or so walking around the shop. And every single person in that community, they asked them, what do you think of, Sleepy Joe? And they were all like, oh, he's such a lovely man. He's so nice. And they're making up things about him. And of course, that's what happens. This is media manipulation. Everything is manipulation. Sleepy Joe should never have been the candidate. And I do believe that Jill Biden should be prosecuted for what she has done, because she allowed this situation to develop that has caused the world to end up with the orange man in the White House yet again, because there was no decent opposition to him. And in Britain, we had, Rishi Sunak, stupid husband of a billionairess, completely useless, as much use as a bus ticket individual.
Well, what's the two parallels? The two parallels, Matthew, between this case we're talking about and Biden. Yes. The Biden laptop was blamed on Russia and Putin. Remember, just like MI5.
Yes. So it's very easy to blame Russia, isn't it? Now, look, the Russians are not good people. The Russians are good people, but the Russian leader is not a good person. He is a terrible, terrible person. And Do we know if he's even still alive or he's just a robot? There's something very odd with him. But with Starmer is a terrible, terrible person, and he's just doing a terrible, terrible job. And these people who allegedly burnt his house down and his car and all the rest, it's a very weird, convenient story to throw into the mix, isn't it?
You got a question from Kenneth. Might Starmer KC have any influence on the criminal case of these gentlemen?
Well, he will have to give evidence if he will be required to give some kind of evidence, I'm sure, because it's to do with him. The thing that links all three attacks is him. So he is a relevant party to the case. That's all I could say. I don't think you could say more than that, but he is not going to be he's not the prosecutor in the case, is he? And he's not going to be. So he will be a witness. I don't know. There will be other witnesses. There'll be the people who live in those properties, the people who own, the lady who owns, or man who owns the car. They will be the witnesses. So he could be a fourth witness, perhaps, but I don't know beyond that. But it is obviously connected to him, so he is a relevant party to the case. Yes.
So, because they classified it as terrorism, couldn't they use that to not release anything embarrassing about Starmer that might come out from these three gentlemen?
Possibly. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It depends how this case progresses. I don't know. We'll see what happens at their first hearing.
And these properties, isn't one of them related to Lord Ali?
No.
Keir Starmer used a flat belonging to Labour donor Lord Ali to
No,
film.
no, that is not a place that has been. That's not the place that's been attacked. No.
Oh, okay.
No, the places that were attacked were his home from the 1990s, which is now converted into apartments, and his own personal home, and his car, his former car, which was kept in the same street as his former home because he sold it to a neighbor. So no, it's nothing to do with Lord Ali in this instance. The properties have no link to Lord Ali.
I think you might have answered this question. Matthew's thoughts on Nigel Farage and reform?
Well, I think the man's a complete nuisance. That's all I have to say.
Amy wants to know,
Farage in garage.
Why don't the millionaires who Labour are targeting get together to get rid of Starmer?
Well, they are. They're all joining reform, and they're trying to do it that way. But I don't think that's the correct thing to do. I don't think it will work. I think it's a waste of money. I think they're throwing good money after bad.
Bungie wants to know, why aren't people calling for the end of the royal family, since they do not defend Christianity and British values, and they've never defended even those young girls in public?
Which young girls?
I think referring to Virginia, etc.
Okay, right. I think King Charles is a fabulous king. I think Queen Camilla is a fabulous queen. I think her reading campaign is superb. I think his views on architecture are fabulous. I think he adds to the world. I think he's doing a very good job. I think, I don't, as you all know, I can't stand Prince Andrew or Fergie or any of the others. I'm not a fan of all the hangers-on. I don't like them. I can't stand them. But I do think that Prince William and his wife, Kate, are fabulous people, and they're doing great things. I'm a great friend of Samantha Markle. I think Samantha is a superb lady, and what her and her family have been through as a result of Prince Harry, a disgusting piece of toe rag, and he's a drip, and then the dodgy wife, the dodgy Duchess, Meghan. I can't stand Meghan. She makes me feel sick violently sick. I feel like saying I'm like Violet Elizabeth Bott. I'll scream and I'll scream and I'll scream until I'm sick, is what Violet Elizabeth Bott used to say, and that's what I'd say about Megain. That's how she makes me feel. She makes me violently sick.
Have you ever met Fergie?
Fergie, of course, I've had dinner with Fergie many times, and I don't like the woman. Can't stand her. She's a stupid, stupid fool. At first, I thought she was like a stupid child and a little innocent, but instead now I just think she's revolting. She's a grifter. And I'm very glad that Loose Women is running out of money, because Loose Women is being cut to 30 weeks a year rather than, 50 odd weeks. So Fergie isn't going to get a job. Oh, happy days. No job for Fergie. $3,000 an episode. That's what she wanted. And my friends at ITV have told me that she's not getting that. So
we've got a super chat from Vinny the Panda. Thank you, Vinny. If Starmer's little friends have been arrested by the anti-terrorism unit, why aren't they being charged with terrorist act?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the complexities of their processing. I don't know, because I know as much as everybody else. So I can't answer that.
All right, next question.
My view is that they are being processed, and we will see what happens. And I think we should just wait and see what happens. But the speculation is there, and I realized this morning when Sarah Vine was shut down on Radio 4 because she dared say something a little controversial. There is something out there that is a bit more than anything else. But I did try to ring a couple of people, and maybe I'll come back on your program tomorrow, and maybe I might know something more by then, because I will speak with a few people who might know things. But at this stage, I don't know quite enough.
Lee wants to know, is it possible for politicians to vote for them to take a wage cut or a privilege cut instead of them cutting public funds?
To vote for them to take a wage cut or a privilege cut? I don't think politicians are in the business of doing such things. No.
Yeah, that's something.
I'm sorry, it's a very strange question. The way it's phrased, I just think